Morgan. That's all of it. That and Aschenbecher. Don't ask. Okay, so happy birthday. You're 10. Congratulations. That's lovely. I remember being 10. 10's really exciting. XP's 14. XP's a teenager. That's cool. XP's going to start dating your daughter soon. You shouldn't be worried about that. Or possibly son. I don't know. Right, I'm going to talk about something a little different today. I'm going to talk about why Agile doesn't scale. I put that title slide up, and lots of enterprising people go, you can't say that, and particularly people selling methodology stuff. Oh, you have to buy my Agile methodology. We're a huge organization. It'll be fine. Here's the thing. XP itself was documented, well, Kent Beck started doing these crazy things that him and Ward Cunningham had cooked up in the 90s. And in 1998, he published his book, XP Explained, the first edition, or the Old Testament, as it's now known. Kent Beck's an interesting guy. So he says, basically it all comes back to principles. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter all the stuff like pairing and TDD and all those things. They fall out of the principles. He says you need simplicity, you need courage, you need feedback. You need this is really core, obvious things. Putting courage in there is quite cool, isn't it? You're going to be brave. And then so people pick up XP and they say, oh, great, you have to follow the 12 commandments. 13, sorry, retrospectives, oops, right? So we've got, these are the rules, and he's like, no, stop, you're missing the point. Second edition. And second edition, he added respect as a fifth value. Do you know why he did that? Any ideas why he did that? Or are there any ideas why it was missing from the first edition? No? Go on. That's beautifully said. He kind of implied it in the first edition. It's so core to how Kent Beck thinks that he didn't think he needed to spell it out. And he sees people beating each other over the head with a stick that says XP on it. And he's saying, wait, stop. Whatever happened to respect? And so he added that as an explicit value. The problem they were solving was this. We are rubbish. We're going back 15 years. We are rubbish at software delivery. We can't ship stuff. In big companies, we can't ship stuff. This is in the 90s. It takes us 2 years to get a release out the door, or 3 years to realize we're never going to get the release out the door that should have gone out a year ago, or something. And that's what Scrum is addressing, XP, DSDM, Crystal, FDD, Adaptive. I'm missing some. There were 17 people in a room who came up with the Agile Manifesto. Each of them had a well-proven Agile method to bring to the table. This is about team-scale delivery. Okay? What they're trying to solve is team-scale delivery. Agile doesn't scale. You need a different thing. So I've been thinking about this, and this is as far as I've got. So I think of this as a work in process. This is kind of a call to arms, and I reckon an XP conference is a pretty good place to do a call to arms. The very first XP Days conference was in London, and it was called XP Day. And it was a day about XP. And it was fun, and then the following year, they called it XP Days. And the strapline was, more than XP, more than a day. Which I really, and it's been that ever since. So now we're like 10 years into, it's more than XP and it's more than a day. So this is like, okay, let's look at the world that sits in. And I've got a challenge for you guys. Okay, I also have a phone that's ringing, which is a bit unusual. Right, so, here we go. There's a better title. That's a safer title, isn't it? How Agile can cross the chasm, and why it usually doesn't. Do you know the term crossing the chasm? Does anyone even know the term crossing the chasm? So it's like a marketing term. The idea is that you have a product, and you have your early adopters and your pioneers and these people who jump onto brand new tech or brand new ideas. And then after a while, your product either succeeds or it doesn't, and and there's like a gap. And if you can get your product across that gap, suddenly everyone buys it, and most products don't make it across that gap. Agile methods generally are still stuck this side of that gap. We've been doing this stuff for 12 years, 15 years, I mean, an embarrassingly long time, right? And it still isn't the norm. It's still a surprise. One of my favourite, slightly disappointing data points is the sheer number of people who are currently going through, certified Scrum anything, right? So this is like, great, let's grab hold of this state-of-the-art, groundbreaking, 15-year-old methodology. Like nothing's changed since. Okay. Anyway, that's probably another tool. This is this tool. This is what we really want to see. Guaranteed formula for scaling Agile. Star, not guaranteed, or a formula. Okay. I'm seeing people out here selling this at the moment. I won't name names, you know who you are. You can scale Agile, you can do enterprise Agile, you can do these things. No, you can't. Okay? No, you can't. It'd be great if that were true. Right? There's things you can do to increase the likelihood of it being possible. But there aren't any guarantees. Okay? Which is unfortunate, because it'd be nice if there were. Yeah? So this is a little bit about why that might be. Well, let's start by some terms. What do I mean by scale? What does scale mean? Let's start scaling things up. Does scale mean tackling bigger problems? Is Agile a bad fit for tackling bigger problems? Do you think? Because I often hear that. Oh, you only do little things with Agile. Has anyone solved something big with Agile? Here. Oh, come on. Yeah. Guys. Okay, I'll give you an example. Ola Binny at ThoughtWorks spent a year, maybe a bit over a year, solving cancer. That's not bad, is it? Right? What he's actually done is he's worked with a small team using, it couldn't be more pure XP type approach. Loads and loads of tests, lots of pairing, lots of co-location, tiny team, very deep domain learning, understanding how different types of treatments affect different types of cancer. And he's done the matrix thing where he kind of plugs in, he comes in and goes, right, okay, I know cellular biology, whatever. He's plugged into that. And he spent, about a year and a half working on this thing and building this expert system, I guess it is, like a machine learning type thing, that can figure out what sequence of treatments is most likely to affect what pathologies of cancer, like oncological, like, whoa, okay? You can tackle really big problems using really small methods, okay? That's fine, as long as it's something you can grow towards. When people say, oh, you can't solve big problems with this, yes, you can. I'm working with a bunch of guys in the UK in government. They're solving government by pair programming. It's pretty cool. And they've got these 25, they're called exemplar projects. Go look it up. GDS, Government Digital Services. They're doing, so that they've gone into government, and so from a government perspective, it's a safe bet. They've said, we can re-platform the whole of government with like 30 people. Take us about a year. And they went, pfft. And then they did the maths, and they said, 30 people for a year, that's a lunch, right? The way governments kind of do procurement and spend money on stuff, that's a rounding error. Like, that's a really safe experiment. I can let you guys do that, and if you fail, which you will, because we're government, we've got plausible deniability, right? Well, a bunch of cowboys, we should have spent a year just doing procurement. And if you succeed, woohoo! And so they said, well, we reckon in a year we can give you a new government platform. A year later, which was last October, it went live. Completely open source stack. They've got a blog that sort of describes all the bits of tech they're using. Open data, open government, it's ridiculous. They're doing it, they're pulling it off. And then other folks around the place are starting to look at this. Say you were, I don't know, America, and you just had a very, very large, very public healthcare system, maybe not go so well. Okay? Come round, have a cup of tea. Let's tell you about how we're doing it. Yeah? Small systems can solve big things. Bigger solutions. There's another kind of learned, received wisdom. Big problems require big solutions. They almost never do. Right? Big problems is about presenting symptoms. It's the lion with the thorn in its paw and it's going, rah, rah, rah. Big problem, big shouty, scary lion. You go, bink, and the lion goes, oh, thanks so much. This is a talking lion in this story. But, so this tiny little thorn leads to this massive pain, and sometimes it's just a thorn. And again, Agile methods are very, very good at locating that stuff. They're very good at asking questions like, what's really going on here? So that's not what I mean by scale either. Big programs. This is where the problem space you have is wide. It's the best way I can describe it, is wide. Yes, I could get a small team to do that. I can't wait that long. There's necessarily a ton of stuff to do. We can figure out pretty easily what that ton of stuff is, and a lot of it can be tackled in parallel. There's just a lot of it. And what I want to do is get lots of people, I want to expand that sideways and have lots of teams running on that. Now, I know, because I've read the Mythical Man Month, that 10 teams won't do things 10 times as fast. They will be able to cover a lot more ground than one team at the cost of huge amounts of coordination across those teams. So that's what I'm looking at. So I want to do wide. I want to figure out what that looks like. I want to use agile methods for the doing, but how do I solve the shape? Okay. This is agile. This is us. I made a plane. I made a car. I can do house. Like this, and we do this. And we do kind of project scale delivery, and we do team scale delivery, and we go, yes, I'm going to build me one of, oh, hang on. Oh, that didn't go so well. Even Sheldon's struggling there. There's bits missing there. There's not bits missing, it's the Death Star. But we just assume that that's going to allow us to do that. We've done a bunch of these, let's just go do that. Okay? Unless you're Sheldon, unlikely. Okay? You're going to need dad or mum to help. All right? So why is scaling so hard? What makes it difficult? What's the thing that makes it difficult? Well, local optimizations don't roll up. Okay? Germany is an interesting place. It used to be lots of different principalities, yeah, and then it all got sort of turned into Germany. And interesting things happened at the edges, yeah. Interesting things happened at the borders. Food's an interesting thing. Dialect, slang, idioms, language. Okay. The UK is similar. We have Wales, where they speak Welsh, Ireland, where they speak Celtic, England, where they speak English, Scotland, we don't know what they speak in Scotland. We listen and we listen. But here's the thing. So what used to happen is we just meet at the edges and fight. Okay, so we meet at the edges, the Welsh and the English would fight, and the English and the Scots would fight, and the Scots would win, so we built a wall, and then the Irish would fight anybody. So language is a great local optimization. It allows communities of people to talk. And not just language, but slang, dialect, jargon. Yeah. So when we talk about story points, business goes, what? Oh, velocity, roll up, burn down. They're going, sorry? Like this. It's a language barrier. And these local optimizations, they're designed to help us do work, but they don't just magically roll up and allow different groups to communicate. At that point, you need you need to make some decisions across those groups. The Americans won at language, it turns out. A good way to do that is invent programming languages. Okay? So because like C and Unix came out of Berkeley, came out of a university in the States, all the keywords are not just English, but American English. They're spelt, we've got Z's and stuff in them. Yeah. So, in the UK, that we all speak English. Okay. Now, the Welsh people also still speak Welsh, and a lot of Irish people still speak Celtic as well. So that are Gaelic as well. So they have local language, but they're aware that in order to speak to someone outside of their community, they need to have some kind of global method of communicating. Okay? So, and lots of these local optimizations don't scale up. I'll talk about some more later on. Here's the thing. This is the dirty secret. It's not that Agile doesn't do this. It's Agile doesn't care. Agile doesn't actually have an opinion. This was never the problem we were trying to solve 15 years ago. The problem we were trying to solve was no delivery at all to any delivery. So Ken Schwaber comes along and he says, look guys, we're going to try and deliver every 90 days, even if it kills us. We go, 3 months. 3 months, Ken, you can't do anything in 3 months. You're an idiot. He's like, okay, look, here's what, I'm going to be even more of an idiot. I'm going to split it in half. We're going to sprint to halfway, 6 weeks, and then we'll sprint to the finish. Right, okay, and that's where sprints came from, and that's where the idea of a 6-week sprint came from. It was the shortest amount of time Ken thought they wouldn't laugh him out of the building. Yeah. So they said, oh yeah, and then so they're saying, Ken, it's impossible to do anything in 6 weeks, and he said, why? right? Let's go and figure out what in our organization stops us doing anything in 6 weeks and go and fix those things. So you introduce a constraint and that causes you to go fix stuff. So that's what they were trying to solve. Can we get from no delivery to any delivery? And in that context, when they talk about hyper-performing teams, they're kind of true, because they went from 0 to anything, which is an infinity improvement. Okay? How much better are you than that team? Infinity. Wow, that's quite a lot, right? Let me scale that into your pay review. Wow, you're very well done. But Agile wasn't trying to solve multiple teams. It was trying to solve any delivery at all. Okay, the multiple teams thing, that was a dream. That's way off in the distance. Well, here we are in the distance. We are now only crap at delivery. Okay, we're only not very good. It was impossible. Now we just struggle with it. But it's no longer the constraint. The constraint moved downstream into operations. We started delivering stuff, even monthly is like 12 times as often as anyone in production has ever seen anything. So we started to break operations. We started to break production. And then we took some of the ideas from Agile delivery into operations, and that created DevOps. And that's kind of led to continuous delivery, which is very exciting, because now we've got some of the cool tricks that we learned as programmers, and we've got some of the discipline and the rigor that you have in operations, and that creates this really wonderful delivery pipe. To the extent that we get good enough at that where's the constraint move now? So if we can deliver stuff as you ask for it, hey, here's some new stuff, and then the guys downstream are going, great, it's in production, it's all live now. Where's the constraint now? Requirement analysis, upstream. We're saying, what do you want? Done. And they go, wait, we're not ready for you. just a minute, we haven't even had time to hide yet. So we've gotten, historically, we batch requirements and we do them in these big requirement documents. What we're saying now, which is the kind of lean startup message, is just keep on asking for stuff. Because the cost of just trying stuff out is low enough now that you can ask for lots of stuff, even if only some of it works. Because the sum of it that works pays for all the other stuff. It's basically venture funding of requirements, which is kind of fun. But it's not that talk either. Here's the thing. Some of these things are not like the others. Who grew up on Sesame Street? You guys on Sesame Street? Yeah. Some of these things are not like the others. I want to tell you a story. Once upon a time, there were 4 large projects, 4 large programs of work. Guess which one we were doing? So we had these 3 very traditional-looking, boxy-type pieces of projects, and then we had our crazy little Agile one. And what we'd have is every month we'd have steering, the steering committee, and we'd report red, amber, green status, or RAG status, and we'd say, okay, right, well, we're just starting, everything's green, we're all good, yeah? And then the second month we said, oh, we're amber. They said, what do you mean? Well, we're amber. What amber means is we need to make a decision, but it's bigger than the project. It's like a program level decision. So we need some help. We need some steering. That's what steering does. So we're flagging ourselves as amber to say we're not in trouble yet, but we could use some help. So maybe it's about procurement. Maybe we need to go and buy some servers. And we think that's probably a program level thing. Do we have a program budget for servers? Or maybe we're about to go and invest in an expensive database license, and we could go and buy SQL Server because our guys in our team like SQL Server, or we could go and buy Oracle, or we could just get MySQL, or we could. There's a bunch of ways we could go here. We think that's probably a global concern. We should all talk about that and decide. Okay, that's what amber meant, and the steering guys went, oh, we've never had to steer before. We usually just shout at people when it's amber. Amber means I need to put you on a warning, right? So they gave us the decision, and we're green again. And then the next month we're amber again. They said, what now? What is it, you guys? We became known as the whiny project. We keep having this steering stuff, and you guys keep asking for things. It's just getting. And then so the next month we said we're red, and they said, red, who do I need to fire? Who's you? Are you the project manager? Right. No, red doesn't mean you need to fire us. Red means last month we were amber. We asked you for a thing. Now that the fact you haven't done that thing is putting us at risk. Okay, that's what red means. And I went, oh, it's on us. Oh, here you go. Green. And so we carried on through the year like this, and every time we go, and so then guess what happened? I call this the green train wreck. Okay, so green, train wreck. Oh, okay. And some of the time, it's because people are scared to say whether things are in trouble. I'll just say green, otherwise it's going to be on my review, right? And mostly, though, people don't know that they're in trouble. The things they track don't tell them that they're in trouble. Because of the stuff we were tracking, like good agile metrics, were telling us this thing is in trouble. We're going slower than we thought. We're going faster than we thought. We need a decision that's a strategic decision, not a local tactical decision. We were able to surface that stuff. Now, two things come out of this story. One is this. The success of this project was enough that it paid to repair all of these the following year, which is nice. Okay, so these guys, had that one failed as well, they literally would have gone under. Okay, as it was, that the business case behind that project we were doing was strong enough that actually the money they made more than paid for the other guys. The second thing I realised from this is this. I failed. Or we failed as a project team. We failed. We saw this coming. No one's that green. That doesn't happen, yeah? And we could see the signs that these things were going to be in trouble. And what did we do? We kept our heads down and just did delivery, because that's what we were there to do. What we could have done is this. The kind of education we were giving the steering guys about what does amber mean, what does red mean, and it doesn't mean who do I fire. We could have gone further with that education. We could have said, by the way, ask yourself the question why you're not hearing this from the other teams. Or let's see if we can match how we do tracking with how they're doing tracking and see why those guys don't connect. Yeah, and we didn't do that. Had we done that, this stuff might have gone less badly for the other guys. Arguably, it's not our responsibility, but I think it's kind of all our responsibility. So, a chap called Richard Durnall was at ThoughtWorks for a few years. He's now at an insurance firm in Australia. And he wrote a fantastic blog article in 2009 called Agile Adoption Patterns, which isn't about Agile or about patterns. But it's still a great article, so go and read it. And he describes a kind of 6 stages of, it's basically an organizational change pattern. He says, well, the first thing that happens is the people break. What does that mean? That means we're bringing in different methods, styles, practices. We're measuring people differently. Good is no longer headphones on typing. Good is now talking to people. I've never had to talk to people before. That's why I became a programmer. Right? I don't like people. And people start to get really unhappy because they didn't choose this. They chose the old thing. The new thing's happening to them. Yeah. So they break. They get upset. Then what happens? Then as people start to get the hang of things, the tools break. What does that mean? That means the way we used to measure things is no longer relevant. The tools we used to use to constrain how we worked are now holding us back, so we need different tools. Okay. Then it gets interesting. Then governance breaks. How we know what's going on. So those 4 projects across that program, that's governance. How do I know what's going on in my organization? And that's what I want to talk about for the rest of this talk. Then the customer breaks. Not the shiny, omniscient, embedded in the team customer. The 50-headed, screaming, wanting different things all at once, keeps changing its mind, massively political customer. That one. Yeah? In other words, understanding what the business needs are breaks. Because we used to think we could do that, and we used to think we could lock it down for 3 years and go and deliver it, and it turns out that's no longer true. It was never true. The problem with this is you can't fake it anymore. It's so obviously not true, you need a different thing. Then the money breaks, right? The funding, my annual budget process, yeah? The fact that I try and box projects into cash and predict all that stuff up front breaks. There's a whole field of work called Beyond Budgeting. If you look at bbrt.org, beyondbudgetingroundtable.org, bbrt.org is a whole bunch of fairly senior executive types who have done things like thrown out annual budgets in $50 billion corporations. Completely insane. Guess what? They're fine. Turns out budgets don't help. Yeah? Or at least you can do different things with the finance and get better controls. So the money breaks. Now, if you get this far, this is like the boss at the end of the level, right? The organization breaks. Yeah? If you can get past the organisation breaks, you've won. Problem is, we're here. We're here, we've been here for about 15 years. Okay? We're really good at these. That doesn't even appear. Yeah? That's where they start to speak a different language. So I was thinking about this, and I thought I could draw this like a crossing the chasm type thing. So you've got, this is my completely unscientific, totally subjective experience of trying to make this work. Resistance on this axis, how hard is it to get this stuff to happen across time? Because you've got to have time, right? The people stuff's pretty straightforward, the tool stuff's pretty straightforward, generally, okay? So if it's going to fail, it fails fast, yeah? Or either that or you have passive aggression and they sit there just waiting for the next methodology to roll in. Have you gone yet? Okay, great, as you were. But so, bringing in new ideas, doing that kind of disruptive stuff, that can work pretty well. Then the tools, well, that kind of follows fairly naturally. It's like once we've now started thinking about different things, we realise the spreadsheets, the Gantt charts, the models that we had don't really help with this stuff anymore. But then the rest of it starts to get really hard. I think solving governance and solving the multi-headed customer is by far the hardest part. If you can crack that, and this is like a multi-year thing, right? If you can crack that, the rest of it sort of starts to fall into place. I've seen this happen, I used to say 3 times, I'm now saying definitely once, right? Maybe twice. Because someone said, what were the 3? And I said, well, there was this one, and then there was that one, which I guess you could say was a success, and then that third one was kind of a maybe a fluke. Yeah. I've been doing this for a long time. This is really hard. Okay? Don't expect this to magically work. And so here we've got this chasm. And this thing here, I call this the chasm of credibility. Because what happens is this. I'm the business this side saying, so, how long is this thing going to take? How much is it going to cost me? What am I going to get? We're agile, we don't do dates. What? How long is it going to take? What am I going to get? How much is it going to cost me? Well, what we're going to do is a sprint 0 where we start to gather our story point metrics, and then we're going to measure velocity, and then we'll have burn up, and then after several sprints we can... What? How much is it going to cost me? When is it going to be? Well, then what we'll do is we'll trend our story points over time, and then we can see what our velocity is, and we can just get out. Get out of the building. And this is what happens. We just clash, like this. Whose responsibility is that? Who's that on? Well, whoever said both of us, thank you. Mostly us. We're the guys changing the story. Okay? We're the guys coming in with new things, with new metrics, with new wording, with new... Okay, not new. What's interesting is the deeper I've gone into this, the further back in time I go. So this is based on lean, well, systems thinking, 90s, lean product design, 70s, okay? And then I start realizing it's actually about kind of things like theory of constraints and all those things. Takes you back to kind of like the 50s. Until you get really deep into this and you realize it's all about batching and queuing theory, which is 1920s. And it turns out that the 1920s stuff about queuing theory, written by Erlang, was a rehash of some stuff from the late 1890s. So I'm dragging software development into the Victorian age. I'm very excited about that. Right? What are we going to do about it? What do we mean by governance? What is this thing here? What's this next challenge? Well, we've got this thing called execution. Execution is what we do. It's software delivery. Okay? So team scale, doing that. We're good at this, right? Delivery assurance. This is once I've got multiple project teams working or multiple teams doing things, how do I know, how do I get them all speaking the same language? How do I know they're all doing the right sort of things? And then above that, I have a thing called governance. And governance says, what should we even be doing in the first place? Okay? And this whole stuff up here, this is called portfolio management. Right? How many of you guys encounter any of the stuff in red day to day? About 4. Go and talk to these guys. They've got a really tough gig. Okay. Well, so let's look at each of these. Let's unpack each of these things. What happens in execution? What is execution about? Execution, we've all seen plan, do, check. adapt. Yes, or plan, do, check, act. So this is Deming. This is the sort of lean delivery cycle. Plan says decide what you're going to do. Do says do it. Check says see whether it was any good. And adapt says if you liked it, do it some more. If you didn't, back it out, or maybe park it and do a different thing. So this is delivery cycle. Okay. I was working with Spotify recently. Who, you know all that stuff you see about Spotify and they're kind of super cool and they've got these really cool offices. It's all true. Really annoyingly, it's all true. They are like amazingly cool and lovely and yeah, anyway. So they've kind of got this riff on it called think it, build it, ship it, tweak it, which I really like. So anything that's in your head, just go build it, okay? Because the time to build something should be pretty straightforward. Then get it in front of people, then start iterating. And then go around again, again, again. So that's your execution cycle. I'll make sure these slides are available, by the way, so don't worry about kind of frantically writing things down. So it's team scale, okay? So execution is team scale. It's locally optimized. Do what works for you in your team. Yeah. We're really good at this. Okay. This is the thing. Excuse me. This is the thing we've been doing for 15 odd years, okay? But now delivery assurance, this is now we've got multiple work streams going on. What does that look like? Well, now we've got cross-team concerns. So these might be technical things, there might be product trade-offs. So for instance, what I might have is I might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams. Okay? These 7 teams are doing stuff. And actually, let's look at my product itself. For my product, I need more on the, well, so it's a, what's my product? What does it do? What does my product do? Healthcare system, okay. So it's patient record management. And there's some stuff about actually getting, storing patient data, and there's stuff about making it available in different hospitals, and there's stuff around security. And so I've got these various teams working on different aspects of that, completely self-contained feature sets, don't worry. And then what we realize at a program level is this, is we're saying across the product, we didn't realize how complex and rich the domain of patient data was. The security stuff we've got down, that wasn't actually that hard to solve, right? Things like the IAAA thing, identity, authentication, authorization, audit, those things. They're not, we cracked that pretty early on. Go team, that's very good. Now what needs to happen though is we need to shift our focus more towards more of the data side. So I'm going to repurpose you 2 teams that were doing security stuff. Your security stuff was fine, but stop. I need you to go and help these guys with some of the more patient data analysis modeling type stuff. Okay. So now that I've just steered that team. I've just completely redirected that team. That wasn't a team level decision. Right? There's nothing that they had no data in their team that would have said, oh, we should do a different thing now. Yeah. And I didn't repurpose them because they're naughty. Right? Oh, look, I'm taking that off you. I'm taking security off you. You're dreadful at security. Go do patient records. Right? It's probably the opposite. It's probably I'm going to take the teams that I think are going fastest and put them on the stuff that's hottest. But then I can start to move to repurpose things like that. So these are product level concerns. Technical trade-offs, the thing about the database. Yeah. So what I don't want is one team spending a bunch of money on some licenses, another team doing a different thing. And it's not just the cost. Let's play this downstream. I'm now the operations guy taking delivery of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different database designs, technologies, whatever else. I've got this mess of stuff because a bunch of very smart people made locally optimized decisions. Yeah. So it's not because anyone failed. And this is the thing. We go, when you get a mess, you go, we've got a mess because a bunch of people failed. No, you get a mess because the system failed. Locally, people were fine. The local stuff doesn't just magically roll up into globally good stuff. At a globally good, you have to decide. You've got to be opinionated about that. So delivery assurance, we're sometimes good at this. A bunch of us, who's been in project teams where you're within a program of work and you've got to play nice with the other kids? Who's been doing? Yeah, about maybe a quarter of you, maybe a bit less. Okay, so some of us have been that. So governance then, what happens in governance? This is now organizational concerns. What should we even be doing? What shape should we even be? How do I get my offshore teams and my remote teams working well with my local teams? Investment trade-offs. Should we even be in the market of patient record management? Turns out, it's a really expensive thing to build good systems, and it's quite a closed shop because you've got to, are we even doing the... Maybe we could go into private healthcare. There's more of those, right? Maybe we could... But this is an investment decision. What things should we invest in? Again, is nothing to do with how well we code, right? It's to do with, as an organisation, what do we want to do? And then portfolio balancing. I've got all this portfolio of stuff, and I've got to figure out where my risk is and what my appetite for risk is. Who's ever even heard the phrase portfolio balancing? Yeah. One person, 2 people. Yeah. We almost never even encounter this. This happens somewhere else in the organisation. The problem you guys have got is you're good at what you do. And because of that, you've become visible. And once you become visible, this stuff starts to become a concern. And so we need to start getting good at this. Or we need to start getting able to talk to this, at least. Okay? And this is what I'm talking about, the credibility chasm. So now let's look at this. So we've got execution, we've got delivery assurance, we've got governance. How do these guys talk to each other? Okay, we've got different kinds of conversations going on. So governance and delivery assurance talk to each other. Governance says things like, this is where we want to be going as an organisation. Delivery assurance says, what does delivery assurance say? Don't know. Okay. What does delivery assurance? Delivery assurance says things like, here's your portfolio of work. Here's all the different projects and programs that are in flight. This is how they're doing. Okay. So now you've got data to say, well, should we carry on investing in this thing? Does it make sense to do that? And then we've got delivery assurance talking to execution. How's the project doing? How's the team? Are they happy? Fantastic. Have you taken them out for dinner recently? Do that. Yeah. Show them some love. And then execution saying back to delivery assurance, they're saying, this is on track, this is not on track. We need a decision about this that we think is probably a steering level, a delivery assurance level decision, and that'd be useful if you could help us do that. So delivery assurance isn't telling people what to do, it's helping coordinate across multiple streams. So what keeps them up at night? What keeps delivery assurance up at night? What do we think? What they're asking themselves continually is this: have I learned anything new that might materially affect delivery? I'm learning new stuff all the time, right? Have I learned anything that might upset things? And not necessarily negative. It may be that I've learned something that means that we could go faster, or that we could do a different thing, or that there might be dragons over here and we should invest a bit in exploring that thing. So this is what I want to ask. I want to know, have we learned anything new that might materially affect stuff? This is steering, okay? This is what program management looks like. And really, the only interesting steering question is, are we nearly there yet? What we do is we say, so the business is saying, are we nearly there yet? And we're saying, well, our velocity is 12 story points per iteration. Are we nearly there yet? We're trending upwards, and the burn down for the next sprint is what? Stop speaking that funny language, and tell me if we're nearly there yet. All I care about is the distance between here and something I can use. Okay. Think of it as kids sitting in the back seat of the car, and you're driving to holiday. So, well, we've been through 3 junctions, and we've taken a rest stop, and are we nearly there yet? That's all they care about. That's the business. Okay. They are saying, can I have my stuff? And actually, that's the right question. Because what we might discover as we're going along is that we can make the journey shorter. We found a shortcut. What we do as an industry, which is shocking, is we take I would like some goal, I would like some outcome, and we turn it into a list of features as a backlog or whatever it is, master story list, that thing, and then we just become a slave to that. So I've got my 300 features, and my 300 features define success. And so now I can start counting down. Are we nearly there yet? Is, tick, down to a smaller number of features. We've taken a Gantt chart and we've turned it 90 degrees. And we've said, there we go, it's a feature story backlog thing, and so that makes us agile. Yeah? And then we say, oh no, but at any point we could swap things in and out, and we can change these and prioritize them. How often does that actually happen? How often do you stand back and look at it and go, that's the wrong backlog? Let's just swipe all of that stuff off the table, start over, where should our product be going? We're a lot smarter now than we were 3 months ago doing this work. Is this still the right work? Okay? We don't do that because of what's called the sunk cost fallacy. We have an investment in that story backlog, and we've spent time grooming it, refining it, whatever your favourite term is, for doing more work than you need to with this list of stuff. Okay? And because we've got this investment in it, we have an emotional attachment to it, and so we don't want to throw it away. Yeah? So, what keeps governance up at night? All they care about is this: are my investments aligned with our objectives? There's two moving parts there. There's investments, that's us. That's the stuff we're delivering, the stuff they're choosing to fund. And that's the objectives, which is an organizational choice. Right? Now, either one of those can move. And so what they're actually saying is this: is there anything we should be doing differently? Okay? So they can't answer that question without data. And that's where the steering, the delivery assurance piece comes in. Yeah? So they're saying, here's how your investments are playing out. Now you're investing in this thing, and this is happening. Either this good thing, or this bad thing, or this expected thing is happening. And so they say, based on that, should we carry on investing in this thing? Or based on the market, the Nokia N95 is my favourite example of this. The Nokia N95, the feature list kind of, long as your arm. And then the iPhone, crappy little iPhone, right? It didn't even have 3G. It was like an old generation of telecoms technology in there. It didn't have a keyboard. Who makes a phone without a keyboard? Bunch of idiots, right? And you look at the things that it didn't do. It didn't have copy and paste. It's got a keyboard. I can type stuff in it, and it didn't have copy and paste. The most fundamental thing that any text. Who won? Right? Who would love to have on their CV, I was the product manager for the N95? Yeah, I roll at that. Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay. So, and this is the thing. When the market shifts, you need to shift. Your objectives shift. Okay. So it doesn't matter how well we're doing at the wrong thing. And we thought it was the right thing. Again, we're not idiots, right? We thought it was the right thing. The market moved. The world has now told us this is the thing they want. Another example. Do anyone know who was first to market with a hybrid car? I learned a thing the other day. I thought I knew the answers, and I learned a different answer. Who was first to market with a hybrid car? Sorry? Audi. Okay, Audi was first to market. No, it wasn't. I thought it was Ford. So it was, in recent years it was Ford. Ford were the first with a hybrid car. The actual first hybrid car was a Porsche in 1897. It was a hybrid engine. There's a photo of this old car. But in this century, it was Ford. And then Honda, and then Toyota came along with the Prius. Who owns the car market, the hybrid car market? So it's pretty much Prius, right? So here's the thing. The Prius wasn't designed as a hybrid car. It was designed in the mid-2000s, and it was bling. Who's been in a Prius? Right? So, you see the dashboard thing with all the animations and the spinning round wheels and all this. Like, it couldn't look any cooler. Yeah. And it's this hybrid car. And the reason was that people wanted bling. And so I want, Bluetooth, and I want an iPod dock, and I want a surround sound, and I want bling, and cool electronics. And then 2008 happened, and everyone said, I want cheap. I used to want bling, now I want very, very inexpensive. Okay? And so Toyota product design guys, they said, so the Prius was just their next generation family car. Then it was going to have all cool stuff in it. And they went down the corridor and they said, look, you guys doing the hybrid engine, how close are you? They said, we're way off yet. And they said, look, can you put it in this car? They said, well, it's a bit big. And if you can make the gap a bit bigger and we make the engine a bit smaller, there we go, ship it. Okay? They were able to iterate, to move their product development so quickly that they could repurpose this family car into a world-beating hybrid. Yeah? So the thing they were building was the perfect car for a market that was 2 years ago. Right? So it's not about good or bad decisions, it's about the ability to adapt to uncertainty and to adapt to new things. So that's good governance. Good governance is we're building the wrong car, let's build the right car. So this is my attempt, if you like, to try and bring these things together. I'm talking about a thing called contextual consistency. I like alliteration. So contextual consistency, what's that? the first thing, in order to get this stuff to scale, in order to take many teams and produce a single program or portfolio of work and be able to govern that as an organizational level, is we need a clear vision. We need a clear vision around technology, right? Where do we want to be? What is our platform going to look like in 2 years, 5 years' time? And we know we're wrong, but we're going to be consistently wrong, and then as we learn more, we're going to be consistently that wrong. Okay? So we're going to choose to move forward together in various states of wrongness, but we're going to embrace that. We're going to embrace that uncertainty. We're going to embrace the fact that we don't know that. And then we're going to have guiding principles. So the way I sort of think of this is principles are the rules that allow us to make the same decision, allow us to think consistently. So there's 2 ways that Marcus can be a really good enterprise architect, right? One is this: he can be in every single design meeting in the entire organization, because that way there's going to be consistency. Yeah. The other thing he can do, or another thing he can do, is this: he can articulate his vision for what good looks like, and so now he is in all those meetings. Yeah. Those guiding principles are, what's the smallest set of advice I could give you so you're likely to think the same way I do? Or let's turn it around. What's the smallest amount of advice you need to give me so that I can think like you do? So that you would trust that when I go into this meeting that you're not going to be in, or when I make this decision that you're not going to see, that you're going to feel safe that my decision will represent what you're thinking. What's the smallest set of information that could be? And there's going to be process stuff, technical stuff, organizational stuff, team stuff, lots of different axes. Yeah? What's our opinion on testing? What's our opinion on testability? What's our opinion on risk? What's our opinion on compliance, about security, about deployability and operations and monitoring and all of those things? What's our opinion on those things? This is the other thing they don't tell you at Agile School. This kind of change, this kind of getting to something like contextual consistency requires strong, consistent leadership. What does that mean? Strong leadership says, you know the self-organizing thing? I want you guys to self-organize. When I say self-organize, that doesn't mean I'm now going to sit over here and watch you all self-organize. That's not what self-organizing means. That's anarchy. That's the other thing. Okay? Self-organizing says this. It says you choose your constraints rather than someone else giving you constraints. It doesn't say don't have constraints. Yeah? Don't have boundaries. Don't have guiding principles. It says self-organizing says you choose your own guiding principles. But you guys need to be consistent about that. Yeah? That needs to be choices, and ideally it needs to be explicit choices. So someone else coming in can go, how do we do things around here? And you can say, hey Dan, welcome to the team. This is how we do things around here. Great. Now I know what good looks like. Now I know how to be effective in this world. So I want local decisions guided by global principles. Yeah, I want Marcus to help me understand how to make good what good looks like in this organization, so that on the ground I can have a good idea. The flip side of this is this: I also know locally when I don't know. And usually what we do when we don't know is we just make it up, right? We guess. Yeah. I don't know what our position is on databases, and we just asked them. We've got a team of 6 people, and 5 of us know SQL Server, so it's a bit of a no-brainer, really, isn't it? Yeah. Unless you don't think of the 5 out of the 6 people in the team, but you think of the 5 out of the 60 people in the program. Yeah. And actually, it turns out that across the program, we have much deeper Postgres skills, and anyway, from an organizational perspective, we're deploying onto Linux on cloud servers, and so Postgres is a much more sensible technical solution. Okay? We didn't know that in our little team. We just went ahead and did the SQL Server thing because it kind of made sense to us. If I'd known what the global guiding principles were, I would have at least known that it probably wasn't a team scale decision. That's a steering decision. Okay? Transparent, accountable decision making. I've stolen this line completely from Beyond Budgeting, from the Throughput Accounting guys. Go and look this stuff up. It's really fascinating. So the way they work is this: they say, okay, in terms of budgeting, How many people in this room? 100, 200? I don't know. A bunch of people. I'm going to give you all the checkbook. Every single one of you gets the company credit card. Okay? You all get to spend money. Right? You don't need someone to sign. You don't need your boss to sign it off. You just all get the checkbook. Woohoo! Here's the thing. Everything you spend is transparent. So everyone gets to see what everyone spends. That's the only constraint. Yeah. Oh, hang on. So now the rule is basically spend the money like it's your own money. Yeah, unless you're spectacularly wealthy, in which case don't spend it like it's your own money. Spend it like it's your own money and you're sensible. And so things like, I'm going to pick on Marcus again because I love his hat. So Marcus and I are both going to the States, and we're going to speak at a conference in the States, and I'm flying coach and he's flying business. And we both know that because we can both see the check stubs. Is that fair? Is that fair? Oh, we need some context, you see, because the thing is, I'm flying in a couple of days early because I'm going to do a bit of sightseeing. Marcus is taking the overnight flight, landing and speaking. He's going to need a good night's sleep. I think it's completely fair. I can save us a few bucks, and he gets a good night's sleep. So actually, those are both good decisions. Yeah. So it's not he's flying whatever, spending money. It's he's making a trade-off call. He could spend an extra day in the office at the cost of sleeping on a plane. Okay. So that's a good decision. Within our transparent, accountable decision-making process, that makes sense. So this is the tweetable version of contextual consistency, if you like. Given the same context, given the same constraints, we're likely to make the same decisions. That's all I want. If you can get to there, you win at governance. The rest of it is detail. Getting to there is ridiculously hard. Right? Determining what those constraints, what context you need to get that consistency is hard. In particular, it's really easy to overdo it, to have too many rules, too many constraints, too much consistency. I don't want everything to be the same, because that's just silly. You know, that's when you say, well, we're going to use this enterprise service bus technology. You know, we're going to use BizTool or whatever it is. You know, we're going to use something. And now I've just gone and accidentally spent $10 million on this big expensive thing. The more project teams I can inflict it on, the cheaper it looks. The cost per use has gone down. No, I've still spent $10 million on this thing. I just try to make that look a bit less big of a number, right? So if I now use this inappropriate technology in every single place, it's just slowing people down. So given the same context, given the same constraints, we're likely to make the same decisions. So I've got a few minutes left. I want to share some of my guiding principles. I was going to try and share lots of them. However, I'm not going to have time. But we can sort of chat afterwards. So, and again, these aren't rules. Please don't write these down and go, oh, Dan said this is how you do guiding principles. No, these are some of the ones that I've been evolving with some of the teams I've been working with over the last year or so. Okay. So I want to share a couple with you so you get an idea of what sort of things I'm talking about. Looking where the action isn't. This is probably one of the most fundamental process ones. So has anyone done anything like value stream mapping? Anyone done value stream mapping? A few hands, okay. Put your hands up, be proud. Be proud of value stream mapping. Put your hands up. Okay, look around the room, see the people with their hands up, and then go and ask them about it. It's a it's an incredibly simple, very powerful technique for visualizing not where work happens, but where waiting happens. Quick example, I was working in a trading firm, and it took 30 days to get a server, which in a lot of organizations is fast. In a trading firm, that could be like you've just missed the entire window of a possible trade because you're trying to get servers. We did a value stream mapping exercise, and we discovered, we calculated the percentage of time work wasn't happening on a server. So from I'd like a server, tick, 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 tick. There's your server. There you go, all ready to go. Right? How much of that 30 days was spent with work happening on that server, and how much of it wasn't? So what percentage of waiting time? Over 90, said someone. Who's that? Yeah, he's done value stream mapping. Right. Anyone else? Anyone less pessimistic? 99, more pessimistic. Okay. Interestingly, smack in the middle is 94%. This is a company full of very smart people doing very good stuff. 94% of the time, of the journey of the server was spent not having stuff happening to it, waiting to hear back from vendors, things stuck in queues. I've got 30 of these to build, yours is number 31, I'll get to it, I'm doing this thing as fast as I can. By making 2 small process changes, they brought the 30 days down to 12 days. So now what does that mean as one of the people doing the work? It means you can pause and you can do better work, right? 2 things to notice about the 94% thing. Let's say instead of being quite fast at doing this work, I was infinity fast at doing this work. How much quicker would that be? 6%, not even a rounding error, right? So working harder is going to make an almost unnoticeable difference. Let's flip that around. What if I took twice as long doing the work? So don't forget, a lot of the time spent in this kind of stuff, and then a lot of the stuff we do is rework. We're working under pressure, we're trying to get stuff out quickly, then we have to go and fix stuff or do it more. What if we spent literally twice as long? So when I'm building the server and putting all the pieces into it, I actually, and seating the memory, whatever, I bother making sure everything's in there so it doesn't fall out in transit. What if I spent twice as long? What impact would that have? Another 6%, right? No difference at all. Yeah. So they brought this from 30 days down to 12 days. And then the guy who was responsible for the servers realized that what he could do is put a buffer of, because they're pretty standard build servers, he could put a buffer of maybe 1 or 2 servers in each data center. Yeah? Which is sunk cost, right? So we need to invest in that. That's a carrying cost, an inventory cost. What it meant was that the average lead time for a server was now 2 hours. I'd like a server, please. Here it is. I'm not ready for it yet. Wait a minute. Now, obviously, there's a 12-day restocking cost, but as long as you don't get a massive run on servers, then you're fine. And usually, if you wanted a whole bunch of servers, you could ask ahead of time. And now they can still guarantee an SLA of like less than 3 weeks. So 12 days, so if you said about 15 days is a guarantee, great. So if I need a whole gobload of servers, I can get them in 3 weeks. If I need a server now, I've literally got it by lunchtime. If I said go now, it's 10:30, right? You'll have your server by lunchtime. What? Built, ready to go, in a data center, racked up, or put on the network. It's pretty cool, right? And so this is the kind of things that come out when you look where the action isn't. And this is a really good example of the tools breaking. Most of our organizational tools are about measuring effort, utilization, capacity, all of that stuff. We're not measuring flow, cycle time, lead time, queuing time, okay? Time spent in queues isn't necessarily bad. Economic cost of work stuck in queues. That's the interesting thing. There's a fantastic book by a guy called Don Reinertsen called, it's got a really, really bad name, The Principles of Product Development Flow. It's just called Flow. Just think of it as flow. But Don Reinertsen, what he does is he creates an economic model around all these sort of business processes, around product design, product development. Even if the thing you're building isn't economic, it gives you a common, like you've now got a level, you can now compare apples with apples. So even if the thing you're doing is education or non-profit or something like that, you can still look at how work gets done as a bunch of economic trade-offs. And it's fascinating, the way you make decisions differently. What else have we got? Never the Expert. Let's do one more here. Never the Expert is about what's called staff liquidity. Okay, so staff liquidity says this. It says, and again, this is really counterintuitive. When work needs to happen, the person who's most of an expert in that area is the last person who should do it. That's just silly. That's just silly. Well, it's not. What's happening is this, is you're saying, I'm going to get someone else to do this work, and I'll pair them up with the expert, but the expert doesn't get to do the work. Okay? So what that does is, over time, that means that knowledge spreads out across lots of other people. And so you end up with the person with the most skills or the broadest skills is the last person you ever deploy anywhere, because that keeps your options open for longer. Yeah. So and this is like, I mean, you can see there's half a dozen of these here. There's many. Where I'm trying to get to is this. Wrapping up, scaling is more than just small things, bigger. Okay. Local optimizations don't roll up. You have to have an opinion at scale. So you need guiding principles. Okay? And you need strong leadership. Strong leadership says, I want someone leading from the front, and they need to be in it for the long haul. This is a 3 to 5 year play, minimum. Right? So The average half-life of a CIO. If I've got a room full of 50 CIOs, how long before half of them are in a new job? 2 years, someone's saying. Anyone else? Current data, 18 months. In 18 months' time, half those people will have changed jobs. Probably into each other's jobs. Because they'll just move around one, don't they? But if you're going to have, if you're going to try it and take on this kind of change and this kind of scale and have it stick, you're going to need you're going to need longevity. So you need to have leadership that's going to support you for that period of time. Because otherwise, what happens? They leave, someone else comes in, much more conservative views, the whole thing just falls apart. Boom. Crossing the chasm of credibility is hard. It's on us. It's our responsibility. We need to, at a steering level, at a governance level, we need to stop talking gummy bears and sprints and story points and burn up and burn down and all of that nonsense. Okay? We need to start thinking in terms of real options, thinking in terms of flow, thinking in terms of what it means as an organisation to achieve. Goiko Ajic has this lovely phrase, business impact. What is it that we need to do to achieve business impact? That's the only thing that matters. Right, I want to minimise the lead time to, are we nearly there yet? Cool, thank you.